Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Let me know in the chats if everything's all good. Thank you so much for coming along, everyone. My name's Darren from Watercolor Mentor. I'm a little bit late today because we had some technical difficulties this morning. I haven't streamed for a while now, and Facebook has changed around a whole bunch of some of the settings. So it took me a while. I couldn't click the start streaming, and I really wanted to make sure that I could get the Facebook event ready. So do let me know how everything sounds and everything looks. I've just got a little scene here of Venice, something that I drew and painted for one of the last demonstrations. So just hang around and just want to have a look and make sure everything's all good and ready to go. Now, remember that the reference photos I have posted, if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the communities tab. And I've posted that reference there so you can download that. Or if you're on Facebook, it's also in the discussions section of the event. So if you're having trouble, let me know and I'll try to send that out to you. But if you click into the event, click into the discussions, the reference photo is there. You can also just watch along and draw with me. It's really good because I've actually got a much better camera that I'm using these days. And that's just going to allow me to do things like zoom in if you guys really want to see close up some of the techniques and things that I'm doing. This is going to really allow me to do that. So I'm going to go through and just have a look. Firstly, what's going on in the chat. It's been a while again since I've hosted one of these like larger events. So I have to multitask a little bit. So if I miss you out in the comments or what have you, I do apologize. But it looks like we've got Pamela here. Good to see you, Pamela. Pamela's one of my students and friends. Maggie, good to see you. Margaret here as well. Margaret actually came along to one of my events over in I was going to say Perth, but Melbourne. It's like a free event that I had on the other week. So it's good to see you, Margaret, and good to catch up with you in person and see you here again. So we've also got Yvonne. Good to see you, Yvonne. In the chats on Facebook, we've got let's see what we got here. We've got Robin. Good to see you, Robin. And Vivian. Just tag Vivian in there. We've got Terry. Terry Michaels. Good to see you, Terry. That you finally got in. I think you messaged me before. And yeah, good to see you've got into this event because I do have a few previous events. So sometimes people get confused and go into those instead. So good to see you here. We've got Debbie. Good to see you, Debbie from Edison, NJ. Is that New Jersey? We've got Linda. Linda's here. We've got Jeanne. We've got Judy. Carlin Caps. Some familiar names here. How you going, Carlin? We've got Tracy. I've actually bought a couple of new screens so that I can have all the things up in front of me because I used to just work on one screen and that was quite hectic. So now I can have the comments kind of up on one screen and it's a little bit more organized. Good to see you, Anne. Anne's also one of my students. She came along to one of my previous programs. And Vivian, lots of people here in the chats. It's great. And let me know how the sound is. The sound going sound okay, guys? Because there's a comment saying the sound is echoing from Barbara, but it might be because just because of your computer. You might want to reset it or something like that. Yep. Let me just see. I'm going to post a link to the reference photo, just a link to the Facebook page where I keep the reference photo, guys. So let me just give me one moment because I know some of you might be having some issues finding that reference. Okay. Rhonda's saying sound is coming and going a little. Maggie says sound is great. And Claire says video and audio is all good on this end. Fantastic. Thanks, Claire. Good to see you. I wasn't sure if you'd be coming along or not because I know you have a pretty busy weekend. But thanks for joining and yeah, if you can't stay, that's all good. I'll send you the link afterwards. Claire's also one of my students and friends we met on Instagram, I think. So let me bear with me, guys, because I got a lot of windows opened up here. And before I start, I just want to make sure the technical stuff's sorted and that you have the reference picture ready. Because I did post it in the events tab, but I know sometimes it can be difficult to find these things, especially if you're not so good with computers. So bear with me. I'm going to copy and paste that link into the chats here, guys. So if you're not sure where to find the references, there is a link. I've just posted that link in the chats of the Facebook event. So click that, and you will be able to take a look at the references. I have a stencil, and I've also got the original reference photo as well. Okay. Let me just make sure that I've got everything ready. Give me a second. Now, the way that these sessions work is I run these live and I really go through what I'm thinking about and what I'm doing as I'm painting. So I tend to talk a lot, and I find that most people like that because instead of just saying, I'm going to pick up a bit of paint, I'm going to, put a bit of blue in there, I'm going to talk about the kind of consistency of the paint, why I'm doing it. So basically what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it. So that might take a little bit longer for me to explain things, but I find that's very beneficial for people because if I just say what I'm doing, that's not going to really help you guys understand how you're going to do that yourself. So I also do check the chats pretty often during the event. So if you have any questions, anything that you'd like to ask me, just let me know in the chats and I'll get back to you. Okay. So there's really a lot of people here. I'm quite excited actually to see so many people in here. It's been a while and I've actually I've missed seeing you all. And I've tried to actually take a bit more time for myself to relax a bit, and because I've been making a lot of videos, running a lot of events, and it's been quite tiring for me. So I really just needed some time to relax and that kind of thing. So I'm trying to really find a good medium, a good balance between how many of these events to run and whatnot. So hope you can find. I've posted that link in the description, so you'll be able to check. You can be able to check the references if you're struggling. It's in there. Let me just double check something, guys. And if you don't mind as well, what I like to do at the end of the event is I like to talk about a program that I have. It's a program that I've had running for a little while. It's like a pre-recorded one. So if you guys I just wanted to make sure it's okay for me to just run a really quick presentation near the end of this workshop. Okay, so that I can kind of talk about the this little program that I have running. It's just a class that I have. It helps me to get a bit of exposure to it. Okay, so I'll just pin that up for the time being. So today's session we are going to be going through. It's going to be sort of separated two parts. So in the first part, I'm going to show you a little bit about figure drawing. So simple figure drawing. I know people always struggle with figures, and with urban landscapes, one of the most important things is to make sure that you've got a decent understanding of perspective, figures, and especially like a sense of decreasing size as we go into the background. So you don't want to make figures enormous in the background and small in the front. It's just going to look a bit weird. So talk a bit about perspective, figures. Remind me about perspective if I don't talk about it, because I end up talking about it anyway. So we'll talk about that. I'll go through a few watercolor techniques, a few sort of sketching techniques. So wet and dry, I think are the most important techniques to learn. All the rest, I would say, just bonus techniques. And I'll go through a little bit about color mixing as well. I know you guys always want to know a bit about color mixing, so I'll talk a bit about that. And we'll do a little sketch of the scene, and then we'll do the final project. Okay, and hopefully it looks something like this. Well, not the same thing. This is of a different place. This is in Murano, but hopefully it looks something in terms of the same style and the forms and accuracy. Okay, but I'm pretty confident we'll be going well. Okay, I haven't done this scene before actually. I wanted to kind of challenge myself and and also show you kind of my mental process, what I'm thinking through while I'm drawing and trying to plan out and compose this thing on the spot. So I think that adds to the authenticity of it, and just making sure that you kind of at least know what I'm thinking, what's going through my mind when I pick out a new reference photo that I haven't done before, and I try to work out how to turn it into a painting. I think that's one of the hardest things to do. Even, if you turn up to a spot in person, you might have a nice place or a nice sort of scenic area where you live. You rock up and pull out your sketchbook, and and that's another thing as well. If you've got a sketchbook, always bring around a sketchbook with you. They're so important, and you can see that I paint out of sketchbooks pretty often. Just in my apartment, and also when I'm outside as well. It's just very convenient. Okay, so we'll talk about composition. I think that's one of the most important things, and that's, I guess linked to that topic is how do you start? How do you start a painting? How do you start your drawing or painting? Because a lot of people just look at the complexity that's out there, and then it just becomes quite overwhelming. You think, hey, there's all these buildings, all these people here, there's carriages, there's all kinds of things here. But in urban sketching, we just want to get an impression of what's going on here. You don't want to really go in there and flesh out all the tiny little details. You want something that is representative of what you see, but you don't want to spend all day doing it, because often when you're sketching out, then when you're going out, and urban sketching is actually a fantastic way to get better, because you put on the spot. The wind's blowing at you, your paint's moving around everywhere, you're holding your brush in one hand and your sketchbook in the other hand. And things are changing as well. The people that are walking through the scene, they, you've got to get them in pretty quick, otherwise they move out of the scene. So it's really one of the most challenging things to do, and you can really improve your drawing and painting skills considerably by doing it. I haven't done it for a little while, but I used to do it most weekends when I was living in Carlton over in Melbourne. So I've now moved into the city, but I was living in Carlton, and there's a lovely place nearby called Carlton Gardens, and I used to go there, and I used to sit around people and sketch, and sometimes people look at me funny, but you do get used to it. Sketch the trees, sketch the wildlife, just have a bit of fun there, just a bit of a relaxing day in the park, and it's one of the best ways to learn. So just really recommend that. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, do let me know before we get started. I just wanted to give you a little rundown of what we're going to be going through today. So Mary Spencer says, can someone help with my issue? I can see and hear the live video but can't chat. Well, I think you can chat. Pretty sure you can chat, Mary or Marie, because it looks like oh, okay. I think what's happening is oh, okay. So Gail and Marie, in terms of the chats, now what's happening is that there's actually two. It's funny because I've got two pages. I've got Watercolor Mentor page, and then I've got the Darren Your Art page. And usually most people tune in on the Watercolor Mentor page. So if you go into the Watercolor Mentor page from Facebook and then click the event there, you see all the chats. For some reason, Facebook doesn't amalgamate all the chats into one. I don't know why. So it always, so always turns out like that. And sometimes you get less people watching on one or the other, and they can't see the chats. Same with YouTube. YouTube's only going to have the YouTube chats there. So if you want to have a look at, some of the chats on Facebook, you've got to tune into the Watercolor Mentor. So it's facebook.com/Watercolor Mentor, and it's be the first post in there. It'll be like a live event that you can see. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure we are all good. I think technical issues are going okay. We've got Wendy. Good to see you. Shanolan Martinez. Really nice to see some new, some usual faces here, and people that have been to my sessions before. Shanolan's been very consistent with all the workshops. I think you've come to almost every one. So good to see you. And I have missed you guys. So let's go ahead, and I want to pick out. I'm going to swap over first to a pretty simple sketchbook. It's not watercolor paper or anything, but just to show you a little bit about figure drawing, okay? And does help if you have some references. If it doesn't, no big deal. Now, figure drawing in urban sketching, people do it in different ways. I'm going to just show you a more simplified way, the way that I do it, I suppose, to get in figures. Now, one thing to remember when you're drawing a figure is that you want to keep in mind proportions. So if we have a head here, let me just zoom in because I think it's going to be pretty tricky for you to see if I'm not zoomed in. One of the things though is that I tend to, if I'm not careful, I tend to forget to zoom out. And then, so I better remember to zoom out. Okay, so here's the head. And the head is kind of, I'm putting it as a kind of rectangular, really like an oval shape, but I tend to find that if I start out with a rectangle, it's easier because then I can just round off the edges of the top of the rectangle and make it into hair. So I kind of go up like that, like a rectangle. We go into the body, so the body might be this sort of shape like this. Okay, people come in different shapes and sizes, obviously. Legs, a couple of triangles like this. So you can put one leg forward. This looks like the person's kind of walking forwards into the scene. You can put in maybe like a couple of sleeves here, okay, like that, and a couple of arms, okay, like that. And one of the things you want to keep in mind, some hair there, okay, is you want to separate out you want to find basic shapes in the figures. So, when I look through and draw this figure, I'm thinking, well, the head's a kind of ovalish rectangular shape. I can draw that. I can draw that in. The sleeves of the shirt have this kind of triangular shape here on the side like that. The arms, I'm just getting in a couple of long tubular sort of shapes. You can even put hands in here if you want. I'm not going to do it. Maybe I've done that already. A couple of legs here, which I've just put in almost like these two triangular shapes like that. And one of the things that you also got to keep in mind is the proportion. So the head normally fits into the body to the entire figure 7.5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7.5 to 8 times, roughly. Okay, so if, for example, you are drawing a child, it's a little bit different because children have larger heads in comparison to their bodies. So they'll have bigger heads, smaller bodies, and shorter legs. Okay, so you might get something, a little figure that kind of looks like this. Okay, a figure that kind of looks like that. It's not so good, but this. Okay, heads are usually a little bit bigger. To imply motion as well, one of the most important things is that I always look at like the position of the head. So this figure kind of looks like they're walking towards us, walking away from us. Okay, probably towards us. Here's maybe the bag that they're holding here on the side. Maybe this figure's walking towards us here. Okay, so you can see basically both the legs. One leg is always in front of the other leg. Okay, same with these two. They're kind of walking either away or towards. You can have someone standing on the side, and I usually do this by putting a bit of a hump on the back of the shoulder like that. Okay, come in, get in the body like this. Okay, something like that. And then the legs kind of like this. Sometimes people like to put a foot or something here. Sometimes also people have their arms outstretched like that. Could be two people just talking to each other, looking at each other and talking. That one's not the best, but this. Two people kind of just leaning over and talking, discussing something. And notice as well the heads of the figures. Sometimes when people are talking, their heads will move a little bit closer to one another. So you basically get their heads sort of sliding towards each other. Linda says, "Hi Darren, so excited to see you again. I can't find the link for the reference photo, not on YouTube or Facebook. Can you help me find it, please?" Oh, thank you, Claire. I think Claire's come to the rescue. I'm doing so many things at once, so that really helps. Fantastic. Now, okay, so where was I to? So these are just some simple figures that I've drawn here. And notice I only took like a few seconds even just to draw these. It didn't take so long at all. And that's the That's the beauty, that's the fun of urban sketching. And follow along, guys, follow along and do these little sketches because they're really going to help you. Okay, so like I said, when people are talking to each other, sometimes their heads slant a little bit. This person's just head's just going straight up. That's completely fine. You can put in a bit of hair as well, like that. Maybe put this person could have a a lot of hair, something like that. Like that. Shadows, might indicate a light source coming from that left-hand side. So a bit of that shadow running to the left like that. A bit of shadow on the body like that. Now, if you want to make it look like someone's moving to the left or moving to the right in a scene, this same angular head thing is important as well. Okay, so there's a figure kind of going in on the side like that. Okay. Sorry, I think I've clear my throat a little bit. So I muted the wrong channel. Anyway, let's go. And I've got the head of the figure here. Okay, and I'm just gonna go and keep increasing the slant of the head of the figure. So there's one. Maybe we have one that's just slightly forward, one that's completely upright. So you can create it so that the bodies of the figures kind of move, so you go more and more on a slant like that. This could be someone just running or just maybe walking really quickly, even leaning over like that. This could be someone that's running like that. Oops. Walking very quickly. Here's another person. This one can just be straight up or maybe walking a little bit towards the right-hand side. And then again, this one here, just standing completely straight. Okay, so the heads, and these ones are kind of a little bit cramped, so I can draw another one here. The heads make a really big difference in how you then position the rest of the body. Okay, so I kind of imagine that there's this line, imaginary line that kind of goes like this. So if I've got the head like this, I'll imagine a line that's running like this, and then I'll shape the body according kind of to that line there. Okay, the leg, maybe one leg out the front like this, the other leg out the back like that, there, running forwards. This one can be also doing the same thing. Okay, you get better at doing this as you practice. Okay, so the direction of where people are moving. And why am I showing you this? The reason why I'm showing you this is because when you are doing urban sketching, obviously people are in different kind of positions. You're going to have people that are moving, there's like a lady here in the reference photo and she's kind of like here somewhere there. Let's just simplify this down. She's got an arm coming out the back like that there. Oops. There, she looks like she's holding onto some kind of bag, or like a jacket like this. But the little poses that the figures are walking in, like just tiny variations in them, really make your scene look more interesting, okay? Rather than having the same looking people in the same poses all the time. That's why I love to sort of change it up a little bit, It doesn't look like much, but it certainly looks like a person walking through. There's the illustrator, one of my most favorite illustrators, and I always remember it from the Roald Dahl books I used to read as a child, Quentin Blake. You can look him up, and he's I think he's a British illustrator, and he does these beautiful kind of whimsical drawings. I'm sure you guys would have seen him before in any of the Roald Dahl books, and I think that's what really got me inspired a little bit to learn line and wash when I was first starting out. Just the little characters and the little expressions in life that he could portray in just a few marks. Okay, so this is a little bit just to go through. Okay, I think that's about it. I'm just thinking if there's anything else I really need to cover with figures. Probably the last thing I could think about is just maybe groups of figures. So you might have a large group of figures that just walking towards a scene, kind of like in the reference photo. Okay, you've got a person here, maybe you've got a person here. What I do, I try to get the heads, try to draw the heads in first. Okay, notice that little heads kind of just overlapping and stuff like that. Okay, so draw the heads in, and that then gives me the opportunity to then do the bodies of these people. Okay, like that. Try not to make them too neat as well. There's another person there, and you see how they overlap with each other. Okay, so that some go in front, some go behind. Okay, this one here, this one could just be even walking back there somewhere. I don't know what they're doing. Okay, another one. This one could also be walking into the scene or something like that. Okay, when you draw the heads, it makes it easier to create these overlapping shapes. Okay, because if you start drawing in the bodies, what happens is that you run into this trap of drawing over the top of other shapes, and it just starts looking a bit messy. Some artists are good at that overlap, cutting over the top of other shapes and things like that. But I find that for me, it just tends to look a bit messy. So this is the strategy that I use. Here's a little bit of shadow or something here across the ground for these figures, as well. A bit of that light source, light source going to this side, or even like here, even like that. That's fine as well. Okay, but that's a little crash course in figure drawing. Okay, so I wanted to just show you a little bit about that. So again, if you've got any questions, I'm checking the chats. Well, hang on, I should be checking the chats. Let me just bring up even with all these screens, I get, I get a bit distracted still. Okay, righto. So let's continue on to color mixing, guys. Color mixing. So I want to just show you a little bit about how I mix colors and just some basic watercolor techniques. Okay, there's 2 watercolor techniques that I want you to really focus on and really try to understand. Now, if you go into search for watercolor techniques online, you find there's a 1,000 of them. There's scratching, there's lifting, there's all using this brush, using that brush. It's really quite overwhelming at times, and you're thinking, do I really need to use all these techniques? And often you don't. In most of my paintings, I only use 2 techniques plus a few other little ones to spice it up a bit. Okay, and Carol says, thank you, so very helpful. Welcome, Carol. Shanolan says, do you always use watercolor sketchbooks? I usually do. And the reason why is because it's the ease of use. You can grab a sketchbook out from the cupboard, bring it out, and you can start straight away. No taping down the paper, no fiddling around with anything. You can get straight into it. And I find that's always beneficial, because starting, as you know, a painting can be quite intimidating. You're always wondering, how do I get started? Oh, I've got to then get all this tape and tape it down, get everything ready. So it just takes that bit of extra preparation out so that you can begin straight away. But I do also have other smaller scenes that I do. I'll just pull them out in a moment, and I'll show you what I do when I tape them down. Serena Vander, what? I think I've seen you in some of the previous ones, Serena, previous workshops. Says, I'm a beginner with watercolor. How do you do white? Do you leave it blank in those areas? Yes, so there's 2 ways you can do white. So you can cut around areas. Okay, so you can, might have a figure like that, and then you can just paint around that figure. You just paint around, just leave that area. Okay, leave the basic colors, just a bit in like that. Or you can use white gouache. So gouache is an opaque watercolor, and I use that all the time to get in highlights at the end. So I'll just grab my tube of it out so you can see what I'm talking about. A few things here. There we go. This stuff here, it's a little bit of white gouache. And you've got to use this while the paper is completely dried. Okay. Good to see you, Ciara, as well. And Sarah says, good to be able to catch you live again, Darren. And yeah, good to see you, Ciara. I've actually seen some of your portraits. They're getting really, really good. So I'm really impressed, Ciara, but good to see you today. Thank you for joining. Marie Spencer, It's asking what brand of watercolor sketchbook do you use? So I make my own sketchbooks, and but this one I'm using today is an Etcher sketchbook. I think I have the link in the YouTube description, so you can have a look at that if you want to know the exact sketchbook I'm using. It's called the Etcher Perfect Sketchbook. They gave this to me as a like a sample unit, so I didn't pay for it. Okay, but it's pretty good. It's just it is a bit pricey for those of you who are looking for something more on a budget. Like I actually create my own sketchbooks by stitching together bits of paper. And here is an example. Here's one that I made once upon a time. So you can see, just buy your own watercolor paper, cut them up, and you can create your own sketchbooks. Okay. And I was gonna also show you just a little bit as well. When I'm not working out of a sketchbook, what I'll do, so here's one I did the other day. Stuff here. Here's one I did the other day. What I do is that I actually just tape down the edges. Okay, you can see the edges. There's a nice little border there. I just use a bit of tape to tape that down to the board, and then I'll paint on top of that. Just gives it a nice little border. Okay, mostly I work out of sketchbooks though, but for these ones they tend to look a bit more finished because of that border. And especially if you're looking to sell your art at some point in time, it's a lot easier to separate these out rather than tearing out pages from your sketchbook. I don't really like doing that. So these are just little ones that I do. They're about 1/8 sheet. So there's really a couple of ways that you can do them. Sketchbook, or you can just do them by taping down little bits of paper onto a bit of board yourself. Okay. Righto. I think that's all the questions. I think I've kind of gotten through everything. Got Swee. Good to see you, Swee. I'm pretty good. I've had some time off just to relax, and I've been making some other courses and things like that as well. So hope you've been well. I haven't heard from you for a bit too, but it's good to see you. Swee's one of my viewers and students and friends on Facebook. So lovely to see you. Righto. So I think these. I think we are done with the questions. Now I'm going to get started a little bit on color mixing. Okay, color mixing. Now, often you will see people using these enormous palettes with 50 different colors. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. Okay, maybe that's about 20, 30 colors. Now, this is my palette here, and I consider this pretty. Look, I'd say there's even sometimes too many colors on here. I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 different purples. I think that's a bit excessive, but I do like the color purple. The main thing to keep in mind when you're starting in watercolors is to keep it simple. Don't have too many colors. Add colors once you get more confident and more able to use your primary colors. So if you've got a yellow, I use a couple different yellows. I use one that's a bit muted and dulled down, like this one here. It's yellow ochre. Got a bit of Hansa yellow medium here. I've got a red over here. This is Pyroline red, and I've got a cerulean blue. I've got a bit of ultramarine blue, but really I could paint most things with the Hansa yellow medium, the Pyroline red, and the ultramarine blue. Okay, because I can just dilute that blue down to make it really light for a sky, or I could pick it up straight up from the palette to create really dark sea kind of area. So it's quite, even 3 colors can get you through everything. But as you get a little bit more experience in watercolors and you want to use some other ones, of course, there's ones here like earth tones, which are great as well. This is 2 different earth tones. I think that's definitely burnt sienna, and that is raw umber. I've got a green here. Green is a it's a convenience color, so you can mix green yourself. If you've just got a bit of blue and a bit of yellow, you can mix that yourself. Of course, you're not going to be able to mix every shade of green, but you're going to be able to have a good mix of that, even just with the ultramarine and the Hansa yellow. But I just have that there because this is a particular green that I like, undersea green, and it is just convenient, so I don't have to be mixing things around. Again, with the purples, I like using purples for shadows. A little bit of this paint here in the corner. This is called neutral tint. Neutral tint is basically a very dark color that you can add to any other colors to darken them and dull them down slightly. So that again is a convenience color. Neutral tint is basically gray. And if you want to make gray yourself, just mix your three primaries. Mix your yellow, red, and your blue together, and you can make a neutralish sort of color. You don't need to go out and buy all these different colors, okay? So I really recommend when you're starting off, start with simple colors, and I'm going to try to stick with that for this session so that you're not overwhelmed as well. Okay, I'm also focused on the value of the color rather than the actual color itself. And when I talk about values, I talk about whether that color is light or dark. Here's an example. So ultramarine blue, really dark color. Okay, I'm picking that almost straight off the palette with a little bit of water. Okay, and it's just so dark. Look at that. Okay, it's almost, I mean, it's not black, but it's pretty dark. Okay, and that's with just a little bit of water added to it. In watercolors, you have to remember when you want to lighten a color, you simply just add water. It's quite different from those who have come from, say, acrylics or oils where you mix a bit of white paint into whatever you're doing to lighten it. Watercolors, you just add in more water. So what I'm doing, I'm just adding a little more water into that blue mix, okay? And I'm shifting that over to the right. Okay, you can see it's starting to dull down a bit and get lighter as well. Okay, and as I add more and more water, it starts getting very thin and almost invisible. Just a light wash of water, like here or something like that. Okay, but it gets pretty dark here or on this side. You can just add in a few more strokes like that. Yeah, we can see that there's a kind of gradation of color from light to dark, just depending on how much water that you use. Okay, so I would say that's like a dark value, and that's a light value. Some colors can produce a larger range of values than some other colors. An example is yellow. Now I'm going to pick up a bit of yellow with this brush, and I'll just show you what I mean, because I'm going to use yellow straight from the palette. It's just as dark as I can get it. I mean, there's stuff mixed into it. Okay, that's straight from the palette. Okay, but still, that's never going to be as dark as this blue here. Okay, and I can just add in a little bit of water. Again, keep going, more water until it's just a very, very subtle light color here on that right hand side. Okay. So, but that's the darkest value that I can get with yellow. Okay, I'd say red is kind of in the middle where you have, it's kind of in the middle of those two in terms of values. So like that, dark values anyway, that, just adding more water as I move down the right hand side. So why am I telling you this? Why is this important? Having a large range of values in your painting is one of the main factors in creating a sense of depth. A lot of people ask me, how do I make it look 3D? How do I make it look like there's shadows and it kind of looks like a photograph with all different things going on, lights and darks, and you're able to push people back, push them forward, objects back and forwards. Value is the most important thing. So I'm not going to be using yellow to try to create a shadow. It's just not. It's not generally the right color. Shadows are not yellow. They're more of like a darker value, and often like a cooler value as well. So I'd use maybe something more bluish. Okay, so this will change your choice, inform your choice in what you're painting, depending on what color you're using. So that's a little bit. So I've talked about a little bit about color mixing. Now I want to talk a little bit also about some watercolor techniques. Okay, I'm just having a think in terms of this. I might also go through while I'm here just some basic mixes. Okay, I'll zoom out so you can see a little bit more of my palette on the right hand side. I think this will help you guys a little bit more. Okay, so say if I want to mix a green, okay, pick up a bit of this blue here, a bit of the yellow. Okay, you got to be careful when you're mixing greens as well. because you can start to contaminate all the yellows. Okay, so this is like this looks like a kind of blue-green sort of color. Okay, it's like that. Okay, if I want to make it darker, I just add in some more blue into that mix, and it's kind of turning more into a darker greenish color like that. If I want to make it more vibrant and more kind of like, you know, grass in the sun kind of thing, I can just mix in more yellow and a little bit of blue, and you can get this kind of color here, which is a really light, grassy sort of color. Okay, you can go even darker and just mix a lot of blue in here and see if we can get something pretty substantial. It's kind of bluish still, a little bit more in there like that. And there we got like a really dark, it's kind of like a dulled down green that you might be able to use in mountainous areas and stuff like that. But already you can see there's quite a few different colors that you can mix from combining different quantities of ultramarine blue and Hansa yellow medium. There's infinite mixes that you can create. So play around with them. You will find as well, by using different primaries, mixing different primaries together, you can get differing levels of vibrancy. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into that, but there's basically you get warm primaries and you can get cool primaries. Okay, I suggest you get kind of one of each, so you get 6 primaries if you're gonna pick them. Gina Trainer says, do you teach online classes? Yes, I do. Yeah, there's links in the description of this video. You can have a look. And I'll also talk about a pre-recorded big program that I have available at the end of this session. So if you hang around till the end, I'll go through that. I just want to but yeah, you can check in the description. There's links in there. Laurie's asking, is there a list of your palette colors? I haven't really put all of them down. Like in the description of this video, if you scroll all the way down the bottom, I think I've got a list of the main colors that I use, so you can go in there and have a look. But I don't have the list of these ones here. I'll probably, I think that's a good idea, Linda. So I'll write these out sometime and I'll actually stick them on the videos. That would be helpful for you. The reason why I don't is because I tend not to get too bogged down with colors. I use so many different ones. And like I said, the values I would say are the most important thing. I used to, I think I used to go with a really gaudy, really vibrant palette, but I'm now starting to go for more of a dulled down sort of palette, funny enough. So let me have a look if there's any other questions. I think we are pretty good. Yvette, how you doing, Yvette? We've also got Rupa Mehta. So it's nice to see you guys again. Just gonna open this up. I can't see all the comments on the other one. That's weird. That's okay. I can see the recent ones at least. Okay. Fantastic. And Pamela says, I'll have to watch the replay, have visitors. Yeah, all good, Pamela. Pamela, you're part of the program, Watercolor Essentials program anyway, so this will be available. So let's continue on. Jian is asking, will this class be available after? Yes, it will be. It will be available for a bit. I was thinking to just keep it on for a while, and later I'll just leave it on for patrons. I've got a little Patreon as well. So, but there are a lot of free workshops that are available on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page as well, so you can go through and have a look. So let's go ahead and I've done a little bit of color mixing. I've talked about the values, the relationship between color and value. That's the most important thing that I want you to understand, and understanding that you're adding different mixes of water in depending on what you're painting. Okay. So, continue on. Just getting a bit of a bit of an issue here with the stream, guys. It's a little bit slow. Let me know if there's some issues with the stream. It's just gone a little bit slow for some reason. I hope you can all hear and see me. Okay, let me know in the chats. This always seems to happen, either at the start or halfway through. I'll just hang on for a little bit. Otherwise, I'll change the. Otherwise, I'll have to change the internet connection. We just have a look at what's going on here. I think it seems okay at the moment, but I'll hang on a little bit. Sometimes it's goes a little bit up and down. There is a question though. Let me just have a look. Helen's asking, how important is brushes in your painting? Is it necessary to acquire a number of brushes, for instance, rounds / flats, that kind of thing? Well, again, a lot of manufacturers will tell you need 100 different brushes, but in most of my paintings I only use a few brushes, and I'll show you the ones that I use. So I have some of these mop brushes here. Okay, these brushes are great. Mop brushes are designed for picking up large quantities of water, and not only that, they allow you to cut around things. So if I pick up a bit of this dark paint here, say I want to cut around, I want to do a bit of a darker wash around these squares or something, I can use the tip of the brush to cut around, and then I can make some sharp edges like this, which is so important because you need to be able at times to leave in lighter areas in the background. Okay, lighter areas are basically different washes. Okay, so I use these three. I use what else do I use? I use a small round brush, something like this, about a number 4 round brush, and I think that's it. There are a few specialty brushes that I might pick up from time to time. For example, this brush here. This is a fan brush. It is in horrible condition, but I still use it, and it allows me to create just this sort of effect. I'm doing grass, painting grass or something like that. Okay, rather than picking up a little round brush like this, having to do this, which I still do anyway. So it's not necessary, but it just makes your life a bit easier at times. And probably get a better effect if you use a round brush like this. Actually, a bit more control, just takes longer. What else do I use? Sometimes I use this brush. It's a Filbert brush, which is a kind of rounded off end. It's kind of like a flat brush that has its end kind of rounded off. And I use this to lift off paint. So I'll pick up a bit of water, just clean water, and I might just do this kind of thing. Rub it in like that to this area. Look at that. You can see it's lifting off a bit of paint. Okay, so sometimes if you want to create little lighter areas, you can use that. I don't use it all too often. In fact, I just use a normal round brush to just lift off, because normal round brushes really do the same thing. It's just that you can kind of wear them out if you do it too much. So see, same thing. I don't have a tissue. I don't have a tissue, or I might have one kind of close by. That's all right. I'll just grab one. So tissue allows you to also kind of like lift off. Okay, so if you use the round brush, go in there, like that. There you go. Lift off a bit of that paint. Same thing. What else do I use? Might use this rigger to get in long sort of shapes. I don't know if I'm doing trees or something. I can get in some branches coming off on little trajectories like that. Little branches. Just makes it easier to draw them in. But again, you can just still use your round brush to do these. I mean, I can just as easily get a tree-like shape and branches using a round brush. Not so necessary. So I say those are the main ones. Flat brushes, I have used them in the past. These days, not so much. Flat brushes I find are really good at cutting around shapes. So here, kind of what I was doing here, if I used a flat brush, they're also good for painting buildings. So if I want to just cut around here, for instance, let me just try it here, lighter area. Look at that edge. It's a crisp, sharp edge, and it's easier to get in sharper edges, okay, rather than using a flat brush. But again, if you get pretty skilled at using your round brush, if you get pretty good at using your round brush, it doesn't matter. It's not so necessary. Some people paint directly with flat brushes, nothing else as well, okay. But I would say probably your main ones you need are just a bunch of round brushes, so a bunch of mop brushes of different sizes. It depends on the size of the paper you're using as well. For example, where is it? I don't have it here, but I'm actually on the side. I'm not going to use this brush, this gigantic brush here, and I'm not going to use this brush here to paint on a piece of paper this size. This is a mop brush, okay? So I normally paint on about an A4 size sheet of paper, A3 to A4, and I find these ones just fine, okay? Because if I'm using this brush, it's going to be impossible for me to get in, cut around shapes. It's going to make a really nice general wash, but it's just going to be too much water. So you're going to want to pick the largest brush you can use, but at the same time, that brush should still allow you to cut around shapes. So I hope that answers your question. I think the stream is back okay now. You guys saying that it's okay. Fantastic. Marion, good to see you, Marion. Familiar faces again. And let's go ahead and continue on. So a couple of important techniques I really want you guys to pick up. If nothing else, if you pick up nothing else from this session, I really want you to understand these two techniques, okay? And they are just wet on wet and wet on dry. This is the kind of bread and butter of watercolor painting. You get all these other techniques that people will tell you about, scratching, lifting, all that kind of stuff. Don't worry about those others when you're starting out. All you want to learn, what you want to be concerned with is wet, or am I painting wet to dry? Wet to wet is tricky because you often start out, so for example, I might start out with just wetting a bit of the paper here, okay? Like that, okay? So now it's a little bit of water here, like that. And then I'm gonna get a bit of paint and drop it in, okay? This could be a cloud or something like that. Wet in wet creates this soft-like impression, okay? It's basically, when you're painting clouds, when you're painting water, for example, I could go in and do like a bit of a water. Let's have a look here, just a light blue. I'll start off with a light blue here. This paper is not the best, but it will do for this demonstration. And I might pick up a bit of darker blue, okay, just off the brush. Not much water as well. If you want to create areas that don't shift around too much when you're painting wet to wet, use less water with the second color you're putting in. And that will do this kind of thing. It will spread, but it won't spread as much. Okay, so this could be little waves or little ripples on the water. Okay, something like that. Okay. So create softer kind of edges. Okay. And I use this for painting skies, painting water. What else do I use it for? I use it for painting landscapes and just like, if I go put in some shrubs, trees and stuff like that, I'll just blend everything together to kind of create larger sort of shapes. Okay, that could be like a tree, that could be some shrubs here, okay? And they kind of look a bit lighter. And then I could pick up a bit of darker paint and just drop that in here like that. Oops, too blue. So we can put in a bit of green with that. Bit darker here. And you can add in a bit more detail and darkness in parts like that. Okay. It allows so much mixing and some of this magical stuff to occur so that you can have a larger range of values, kind of like what I was telling you before in painting, you want to make sure that you have a larger range of values. When you look at a tree or you look at any kind of object, there's always areas of light and dark in that particular object. It's very rare that it's just one particular value, unless it's on the bright, just being blasted by light. It's often the light source. You know, the tree might have a shadow coming towards here on the ground. It's not the best example, but you really want to observe that. And wet and wet allows you to get in the range of values in a very efficient manner. And I think wet and wet was originally what drew me into watercolors. These beautiful transitions that you can't really paint. You know, you can't really paint yourself. You just got to let it. You put in the paint, let it blend and mix in there, and something magical just happens. Okay, so there's a sense of uncontrollability at times when people paint wet to wet. They often people say, you know, it just goes everywhere. Just all the paint just moves everywhere. Now, one of the things you got to keep in mind when you're painting wet to wet, you need to make sure that you're keeping in mind how wet the paper is. Okay, so this is a bit of paper that I've wet, and then I might go over here. Okay, and I'll just add in more water. Okay, but I'm going to let that one dry off a little bit. Okay. And if I just drop in some paint in here straight away, this is just some purple, okay? It does mix and it spreads a lot more, okay? It spread a lot more, okay? This bit here, it's starting to dry, okay? But it's still kind of wet. And if I drop in some paint, you notice there's less of a spread, okay? But you still get this kind of soft, lovely soft kind of effect. So the more you let the paper dry, the more control you can get over in these wet and wet sort of techniques. Also, when you use a larger concentration of paint as well, higher concentration of paint, that just means that allows you also to get in sharper sort of bits and pieces. If you're dropping in a high concentration of water into this area, it's going to create a mess. Always want to be using, say if the paper is pretty wet here, you want to use a drier sort of brush stroke, okay, with less water. Okay. Oops. Just trying to the audio okay. Right, let's check the just have a quick look at the chats. Look at the chats. Louisa Steele, what is A4? Yeah, it's just I'm not sure what the conversion is into inches. I think it's like 11 by 14, maybe 11 by 14 inches, or 9 by 11. I might have to check it, search it up. Helen says, thank you very much. You've given me great explanation around different brushes. I really appreciate it. No worries, Helen. I'm glad I could help. And great. So let's go ahead and go on to the next point. So I want to do a little sketch before we start on our project, on our final project. And the purpose of this is to show you how to identify shapes, how to simplify a scene down into its basic components, and how to decide what you want your painting to turn out, what kind of mood you'd like, what you want to focus on. Because remember, it's just a reference photo. You don't want to copy it. You want to use your personal experiences and draw from what you have inside you and what you see to create something that stands separate from the reference, okay? So sketching for me is one of the first steps that I use in order to plan out a painting, okay? Plan out a drawing, plan out a painting, whatever it might be, okay? So I might go in, I've got a 0.5 pen. Again, these pens are permanent pens, so they don't run when you add water in there, which is super important. Don't want it to disappear on you underneath all the watercolor. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and let's have, I'm assuming you guys have the reference photo up again. So if you bring up that reference photo, just the one I have in the corner of the scene. Okay. Now this is just a quick exercise we're going to do to plan things out. So let's put in the horizon line. Now this is again another thing I've remembered I probably should talk about: perspective. So what you want to remember is when you're doing a scene like this, you have got, there's your sheet of paper, you want to identify the area where the sky meets the land or the ground. Okay, you can't see it exactly here, but I'd say it's roughly here. Okay, near the bottom of the buildings, way over in the back, something like that. Okay, so the sky separates from the ground. Okay, and what we can do here is you'll find that you can actually start putting in the figures, the heads of the figures roughly around the horizon line. This is going to indicate a kind of, flat scene. Okay, just keep them all around the same height in the horizon line. Now, you find that some figures like this, could do a really big figure here in the foreground. Okay, bigger figure, but the legs will go out of the scene, but the heads will always be on the same point on this horizon line. Okay. Okay. And then you'll also find that there's basically a vanishing point all the way in distance. You can't see it here because the scene is just too close up, but often you'll find that if you imagine a little point on that horizon line, there are all these lines running towards that point on the horizon. Okay, like that. Let me just zoom in a little bit better for you. Okay, that's probably better. Okay. So we've got this sort of thing going on here. What else do we have? We've got this, it's a bit of a shape here. It's kind of like a trapezoidal shape running down, kind of like this bottom of a building or something there. You've got another building somewhere here on the side, like that. Larger sort of shapes. I mean, I'm not going to really get them in seriously like that, but it's like larger buildings there. You've got a building like here. You've got shapes. Just recognizing shapes. It's a triangle. That's a square or a rectangle underneath. That's another kind of a trapezoidal like shape there. Okay, a lot of this kind of just disappears around this big tree here over on the side. Where's my pen? Yeah, large sort of shape there. There's dark bits in here, underneath here. You've got little windows and things all across here. Maybe a bit of shadow and shade in there. You've got some umbrellas in here as well. Maybe you've got some kind of like carriage here. This is what I was worried about, actually, this carriage. How am I going to get that in? It's quite subtle. So, I'm just sort of thinking out aloud, planning where to put all these things. They almost look a bit like cars. You can almost mistake them for cars, but they're not. The light source is coming from the left. So you're going to see all this stuff here on the ground, these bits of tree and stuff, shadows running across the ground. Okay. So just a little sketch, I suppose, to get me familiar with identifying the shapes, and for you also when you're going through, you're looking at things so you can identify. I mean, these windows, they're just rectangles, like rectangular like shapes like this. Okay, draw them in, little rectangles. If you can draw a rectangle, you can draw a window. Okay, this is kind of like an arch like shape, this window here. We've gone a bit overboard with those shadows, but that's okay. So essentially, you've got like a quick little scene like this, okay? And we can go ahead and get started on the drawing. So I'm going to pull out my other sketchbook, and we will get cracking with that next, with the actual project. So here we go. Let me just move some of my gear away. All right, so what I'd like you to do is, just grab another bit of paper or grab your sketchbook, and we we'll give this entire scene a go. I'll just zoom out so then you can see as well. Just move the palette a little bit closer to. I think that's going to just give you a slight view of my palette, so you can see some of the colors I'm mixing. Zoom out. Just take a sorry. Just let me bear with me, guys. Zoom out a little bit. Okay. Right. So I think with this one, I probably won't put in a border. Okay, sometimes I draw a rough border around the edge of it, but I'm just going to go in straight and get this in. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions as well before I get started, and I will answer your questions. If you have any questions during the demonstration as well, let me know. I will do my best to answer them. But it's good to see some of you helping each other out in terms of the sizing of the paper. Yeah, it's like 8 by 3 by 11.7 inches for A4. Thank you, Barb. Righto. So, okay, here are a bunch of pens I have. Now, you only need to use one pen. If you've just got a 0.5 pen, a 0.5, 0.7, 0.3 pen, that's fine. Just make sure that they are waterproof. Yeah, so the lines stay put when you add water over the top. If you don't want to use pen, just use paper, pencil. I'm talking about pencil. So pencil's just you're not gonna be able to really see the lines so well once you go over with the watercolors, but it's just a different style. I'm tending now towards using line and wash for my demonstrations because people can just see so much better. Terry's asking pencil first or straight to ink. I'm gonna go straight into ink, Terry, and you know what? Give it a go. Give it a go. I reckon just go straight into ink. But again, if you're feeling a bit too uncomfortable going straight into ink, you can always go with pencil first and then ink afterwards. These days I go straight in with ink, but I think the practice is what counts. So I'm gonna go in. I've got the 0.5 here, the 0.5 liner. This will do well. And I'm going to start off by putting in that horizon line again. So we kind of just estimated it before, and I'd say that horizon line runs in about slightly above the 1/4 mark of the page, perhaps here. So I'm going to get in a light little line running across the page here. Okay. Light little line like this. Yeah. And this is going to signify the bottom of the buildings, okay, the base of these buildings. Okay, how are we going to simplify this down? There's so much going on in here. Now, I want to pick out large shapes. I always want to draw in the shapes that are the easiest, the largest to put in first. And the separation, this line here, separation between the sky and the ground, is the easiest to put in. So that's why I go in with this this part first. Now, let's have a look at these buildings on the right-hand side. So you can see there's like a building with a kind of shade here, you know, a little cover, maybe like a cafe or something. And I would say, in terms of where it starts, I'd say, it starts right at a third of the way from the right side of the page. Okay, so kind of just looking at the reference, 1/3. Not even a third, it's probably a little less than a third, so kind of like around, so break up painting picture into thirds, about here. Okay, most of the buildings are actually in the left side of the scene to the middle, more to, well, actually all the way to the right hand side to the left here, but you want to leave probably about a third or less of the paper here to get in these buildings to the right hand side. I'm just going to go in and start drawing this building in quite quickly like this. Okay. Another thing you want to keep in mind is how high the buildings go as well. I mean, you can see here, especially on this side here, it goes out of the scene. You can see part of that building just go out like that. So I can actually just draw that in like this here. It just kind of comes down, all the way down like this. Okay. And I always like to go in with a lighter sort of pen like this first. And basically don't go in too dark. I go in over the top and strengthen it once I have a better indication of what I'm what I'm doing. So I can draw that in like that. Shift my palette. I'm gonna get paint on my hands. And let's have a look. We can now get in the side of that building there, like that. Okay. This is a rectangular shape. If you're looking at kind of like a kind of a cereal box, and I'm talking about this building right at the end, the edge of this row of buildings running down. It's kind of like a rectangular shape, isn't it? Okay. So I'm just drawing that in like this. Good indication of where that is. Not to be perfect. It gets more complicated as we come down here. Now we start getting these kind of pointy like buildings. Okay, it comes up here, but this is just, if you look at it closely, it's a triangle. Okay, so just drawing a triangle like that. There's one. Okay, and we're gonna get in a second triangle, kind of like here. Another triangle coming up. Okay, like that. Like that. Coming down. This. Like that. And then we've got another triangle that sort of comes up like this and then comes down here. Okay. And then you can see the rooftop kind of just scoot off like there. Okay. There, just finish off that. These are the rooftops like this. There. There's a lot of stuff in here. Okay. And all the while, you know, when I'm drawing this, I'm also thinking to myself, okay, well, what do I want this scene to be about? I love the buildings. I think they're amazing. But also at the same time, I don't want to really get in all the details and spend all day just sort of drawing them in. So I want to make sure at the same time that I focus a little bit on the figures, because I love just creating this sense of life and movement in the scene. So having some focus on the figures and also the light. I just love this sort of light that's coming across on the ground, little bits of light mixed with the shadows, a little bit of light here as well. Okay, so I want it to be more of a story of this light and the umbrellas, catching the umbrellas and just people moving through. Okay, I like the colors. I really like the colors, but I want to perhaps exaggerate the values a bit more, darken some of the values on the buildings where the shadows are. Okay, so going to just draw this one in. And again, there's kind of a lot of stuff going on here. There's really a lot of stuff going on here, and you can get bogged down, but I'm just going to simplify it down like that. As long as you got that general shape there, you are completely fine. I have a few other pens that really help out. They're kind of flat-edged. They're just like flat-edged sort of pens. And you'll find you can actually just create window-like shapes in here. Okay, so there's a window like that. There's one there. You know, I can just put in a little something up the top there. Bit up there. You just darker sort of bits and pieces in here. There's a bit here. There's one here. Okay, another one here. And then this is like for the side of this. It's like a building here that's on its side here. Just draw that in. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's stuff down here as well. Okay, and you want to create a sense of overlapping shapes and bits and pieces. So I'm going to put in, let's go and just, I'm going to try to draw in this kind of carriage or whatever here, just an indication of it, like that. Really not a whole lot of detail, but I hope I can get in those wheels somewhat accurately so that it kind of looks like a carriage or something. I don't know where the horses are. They're probably off. Or maybe they're just, yeah, I'm not sure. So I actually have a friend that's over in, friend and viewer, Philippe, who's over in the Netherlands, and he messaged me the other day, and he lives quite close to this area, actually. So apparently these are kind of touristy like things, these carriages. So here's a wheel. See if I can get that in. Sometimes when I'm drawing, I'll just draw it in the air first. Draw it in the air and then I'll complete it after. It's kind of like practicing throwing a ball. You know? There we go. The spokes of the wheel, like that. There's a kind of, this is just like a box. It's just like a rectangular box. That's all it is. Something like that. Okay. The other wheel kind of comes out here underneath there. It's not much. Certainly doesn't look like a whole lot at the moment, but I'm having some faith that in time, there's actually a person here as well doing something, that in time, in combination with everything else, will start looking like something. Okay, there's another overlapping one here as well, kind of this rectangular box-like shape in front there. Look at that. I'm just looking at the shapes. Don't think of it as a carriage or whatever, otherwise you're going to give yourself a headache. I think this is a seat. Over here, bits and pieces up here. There's a wheel, again, just like a wheel there, a wheel coming underneath there, or something like that. It's actually a larger wheel, it's kind of like that. And you have a few people. So I'm going to just start drawing a few people in here. So I might go head of a person like this, kind of all the way in the distance, leaning over. And remember what I was telling you before about drawing the figures to make sure that their bodies, their heads and what have you, are all on the same point on the horizon line. Kind of drawing that one a little bit too high, actually. The head should be slightly lower. So I will raise that horizon line a touch like that. Doesn't have to be exactly on the horizon line. Slight variations are fine. Here's another one, just put in another person here. Okay, and this technique again, we're using just overlapping shapes. Okay, overlapping figures, kind of just walking around. This one here may just be walking into the scene. Another person here as well. Some legs, just maybe standing on the side like that. Okay. Fantastic. And you know, over in the left-hand side here, I'm going to just start putting in a few of these buildings. Now we know, one of the things we know is that this building here, almost the roof of it kind of comes up to the top here. This triangle, the top of the triangle starts here at the almost here, this part of the building. Okay. So I'm going to just draw this kind of triangle coming down. We'll just estimate it like this, perhaps. Okay. One of the things also with these buildings is that you've got these kind of stepping, they kind of just look like these pieces like that. Almost like little stairs, almost like a little stairway sort of pattern design of the building. And I'll bring that down like this, bring this one down as well. Okay. That. I'll have to just move this horizon. I'll just move that horizon line a little bit further up like that. That's okay. Gone a bit further up than I wanted, but we'll make do. There we go. Another thing also is that there is some kind of shade cloth here or something. So I can just estimate where I want that to be. Put it in like roughly here. Okay. There. That's like a bit of this shade cloth. That. All the way off there. There's some areas inside the buildings as well to indicate like these shops and stuff like that. One thing that I might do is create a bit more, maybe like another window here as well. Okay, some like sort of shapes like that there. You know, here on the side of this building, there's actually kind of like again, this sort of, what you call it, like a arch like shape there, going up in there. Okay, a bit of shadow under there. You've got a window there or something there. You know, simplify down. There's another one here. Okay, there is a building even running through here, which I'll get in. It's kind of in the distance. It's like a rooftop of a building, actually, kind of running through like that. And I think this is going to be good because we can get in some darkness and stuff behind as well. Umbrellas, just triangles. Putting a few triangles in here. Look at that. There's one. Here's another one. Okay. Don't think about it too much. Triangles overlapping. If you can draw a triangle, you can draw an umbrella. Like that. Okay. I'm going to go over to that left-hand side now. Let's draw in the rest of these buildings. I think the buildings are probably the most challenging part of this scene. Okay. So I'm just moving the rooftop of that one over to the left a touch. Notice also that inside this building, once you've got some other, there's another one here. Look at this. It's just another triangle like that. Kind of on the side. You don't really see too much of it. Oops. If you make a mistake as well when you're drawing, just continue on, guys. Don't get bogged down and don't get worried about, trying to start again or something like that. We just want to get an impression of what's going on. And often I make lots of mistakes during drawing a scene. I make tons of mistakes, but funny enough, they kind of add to the uniqueness and the style of the artist. So I don't really think of them as mistakes. Here's a rooftop coming in here, like a trapezoidal looking shape here. There. Look at this, you get another one. There's another larger one just running through here. I may have to even make this tree perhaps larger. Yep. There we go. Sometimes I will draw a little dot as well in areas where I was kind of like connect the dots. So I want to just work out the angle of this line. I know the angle of this line kind of goes a little bit going up to the sky. This rooftop of this orange building is a little bit up. So I'll draw a dot here that's kind of going a little bit more further up, and then I'll join these dots together. Easy. Okay, let's have a look. Now this roof finishes roughly in the center of that one. Do the same thing here, dot here. Okay, connect this up a little bit like that. But here it's a little bit tricky because we've got like another center part of this building. Again, it's kind of like this, almost like it's triangular-like shape, but it's not really. There's kind of steppy things on there, but I'm simplifying it down. The roof of this little, it's like an attic or something, eh? There, come down like that. There. Does anyone know where this is, by the way? I know it's somewhere in the Netherlands. I'm always drawn to these scenes of like colorful buildings and intricate buildings. I don't know why. I torture myself drawing such things, but at least I'm not alone here. Right. So even this one, I've made a slight error. I've made a slight error here. This line should not go all the way. This sort of roof should not go all the way past this area. But you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna go with it. Okay. The building will just appear a little bit more on an angle. Bring that down. I might be able to change it later, but accept it and move on. Okay. When you're drawing freehand like this, you're going to make mistakes. Okay. You're going to make mistakes, and if you take a little bit more time, especially if you do a little sketch in pencil before, you can avoid a lot of that stuff. But the main things that I want you to focus on are the essentials, making sure that you've got the shape of the buildings, roughly correct. You've got the horizon line in the right place, bits and pieces. You can whip these out all the time. You don't have to constantly worry about every single building, whether it's correct or not. Here is a kind of a shade, another shade or part of the building here in the background. Just trying to pick out little squares and bits and pieces to sort of draw into these buildings. I've not drawn the bottom of this building in. Let me just figure this one out, kind of like this. There. Let's get in the bottom part there, like that. It goes past the umbrellas all the way down like that. Okay. These buildings have like some of these, what you call them, windows, little windows here in the back as well, something like this. There, I have one couple there. One of the things you'll find as well with the stuff in the background, you don't want to make it too obvious. So I tend to use thinner lines with stuff in the background, and as we move into the foreground, we're going to create thicker sort of lines to indicate that we are moving towards, we're getting closer to the scene like here. But you know, stuff in the background here, for example, I'm just gonna, just a few little bits like that. And you'll find that this just actually pushes back those shapes. Okay. Pick a few little bits and pieces here. There's even some darkness in there. I don't know what that is. You can do some windows here as well. I can go in and just draw in, you know, this window is kind of like quite elaborate. But I can just simplify it down to something like this, color in a little bit of the edges like this. We can get in another one here, you know, draw in a couple of this sort of crisscrossy sort of pattern, and then color around the white frames. Just see if I can draw in a better frame in there. Some of these windows, something like this there. And tell you what, if you can draw something like this, you can draw anything in urban sketching, because you don't often get something like this that's quite tricky. Now again, we did the little exercise before. We were drawing a group of people. So what am I doing here? I'm going to zoom into the reference and I'm going to draw a bunch of these heads, a bunch of these people just walking around here in the distance, but they're smaller. Some may be bigger, like coming forwards a bit more, but I'm going to just get in a bunch of these figures and simplify them down like this. Oops, let me put the heads up a little bit further there. Here's a leg coming forwards, and a leg here as well. That maybe he's walking into the scene. Person here. There's another person here, perhaps in the distance. Here, another person here. Another person maybe just standing on the side like that, just sort of hanging around. Okay. Just get these overlapping shapes, and again, I'm going to change it so that this person looks like they're walking into the scene like that. Yeah, with the leg movement. You have another person doing the same thing, a bit more leg movement in there. You know, we can even have a person walking in the opposite direction here, maybe overlapping a bit like that. Just create this kind of hustle and bustle, busy sort of scene, and that's what I want anyway. But you don't have to put in all this stuff if you don't want. Okay, it's just what you want to imply. It's really up to you. Really up to you. Okay, sometimes I don't like the reference picture at all, and I change it quite significantly to something, something fairly different. Here we go. You're just getting this edge of this rooftop like that now, and of course there's another rooftop here disappearing behind the tree, and this is like kind of another thingamo here, and there's a monument here as well. Let me just get in this monument. It's like a rectangular shaped monument like this. There, the top is a triangle. There you go, just a little triangle. Not interested in all the little details. I just want to get in an impression of this. The base, okay, like that. And there we go. That's done. That's a little monument. Little monument like that. Okay. Great. I'm still keeping an eye on the chats, guys. I know you're probably super busy drawing along, but if you have questions, drop them in the chats. I'll do my best to answer them. And I think Rupert says, thank you for the lesson on creating the figures. Very helpful. No problem. Their figures are just, I think, a pretty crucial part of any urban sort of sketching urban landscape scene. So I think having just a basic understanding of them will help you. As you can see, my figures are not the most realistic figures, but they do the job. Okay. Especially if you don't want to spend all day drawing them. So I've got a bit of that building here, and of course, you know, this thingamo here, these three windows, as we move down into the foreground and to buildings that are closer, we want to increase the level of complexity of some of these details. Okay, you want to make them look more, just a bit more refined. So as you can see, I'm just drawing in a bit more in here. And there's some kind of opening down the bottom as well. I don't know what that is, but I'm just going to color that one in, kind of like a darker color here, behind that umbrella. Now you might have bits of darkness under here as well. There, underneath some of these umbrellas, there can be like kind of dark areas there. Underneath here as well. Okay, you can do this. You don't need a large pen like this, but you can just, you know, you can just do this in watercolor afterwards, or you can actually just use a smaller liner and just color it in. I've just used this because it's a lot easier, does it quickly. Okay. So again, I was kind of like drew in this window, in these windows, and I can just, again, just start to put in a bit more detailing and stuff in here that might help to increase the sense of detail. Okay, so I'm kind of like drawing in, coloring in little bits of the windows that might be shaded a bit darker, recreate this kind of window frame effect like that. Okay, this, there, little bits and pieces. Let's do this one. Don't have to do them really slow as well. You can kind of scratch them in like that, and that looks quite okay. What else have we got here? There's a window here. Didn't see that. Just underneath in this section, like that. Okay. Darkness up the top there as well. Good. I'm going to start drawing in on this left-hand side these little umbrellas, and I'm going to keep it simple again, just triangular shaped umbrellas over here, and they're going to be kind of lighter in color, overlapping with each other, or underneath the trees and stuff like that in there. Okay. Of course, we have this larger carriage here, and it's hard to see it because it's mostly in the dark. Okay, but we can still get in basic details. We can get in this kind of rectangular like shape, shapes on the back. I think there's a couple of lights. There's a light here, there's a light here. Okay, and the round sort of wheels there's one, and then we might have another one like kind of here, like that. All right, so kind of a basket like shape at the bottom, like a kind of woven, I think it looks like a basket or something like that. At the back, there's definitely a basket there as well. Just realized this one should probably be a bit lower. I'm thinking I might just fudge one in here. Something, another one in here, just fudge one in here. Create another shape like that. Okay. And this can be like a pretend carriage. Okay. Because I think I've drawn these ones on the right a little bit too high up, but that's okay. I'm not going to really notice that. And again, these like sort of shadows of the figures, they all run towards that right-hand side. Everything just runs towards that right-hand side. You notice here, another couple of wheels. You can just get another indication of that wheel there as well. It's just darken this one a little bit. Okay, you can even see like a wheel here, like of a carriage kind of like in motion going through the scene at the front. That might even be a horse there. I don't know right in front, but I can't 100% tell. Doesn't matter. And across the back, I'm going to put in some figures. Here's one standing in the distance like that. Maybe walking towards the scene. Okay. Got these trees as well. These trees, of course. There you go. One coming in the side of the scene there. And there. Like That's a pretty big tree. They're coming in there, and then we've got the branches of it spreading into the scene. I'm getting another tree like roughly here. Okay, just a vertical shape like that. Just a vertical shape. You know, there's a lot of things. There's really a lot of things in here, and we've got to be careful not to overdo it because a lot of this stuff is going to, again, just be in the dark. So, you know, this could be I mean, this is like a rectangular shape or something here. I don't know what this is. I really don't know what that is, but it doesn't matter. Maybe little bits of fence coming into the scene like this. That. Okay. Something like this. Right? All in the background is just these shops. You can see them, just the little sections of the shops, these vertical lines like that, and this tree just sort of runs through. It runs through, and it goes through this building. You can kind of in here, there. Part of the tree runs through that rooftop, that building, there, and kind of just disappears out like that. Okay, and it covers up a whole lot of it. So remember, this is all pretty dark here on the left-hand side, and creating a sense of this large shadow shape running through the scene is so important. Okay. Normally, I'd probably spend more time actually just drawing bits and pieces in here. Okay, but for today, we will just focus on the basics. I think the drawing looks quite okay already. Let me just see, what else do I have in here? I've forgotten some windows, some little windows on this one. So just draw in a couple of these rectangular shapes, similar to those ones. There, maybe like just two of them, there and there, like that. The drawing is so important because in line and wash, urban sketching, these lines will all show through on the other side. So you kind of, I think the level of accuracy is fairly important. Let's have a look. Yeah, nothing. A couple of these windows. I just want to get these out the way. I'm not a fan of drawing windows. I'd done a demonstration a while back. I can't remember where the location was again, but I'm pretty sure I drew about 100 of these little windows in. And my hands were hurting afterwards. So something like that. I think that does the trick. I just like to pick up again this thicker liner. If you have a thicker liner, just use whatever you've got. And again, I just like to darken off areas. So I might go in here and think, okay, well, this part of the carriage I might want to just make darker on that right-hand side or something like that. I'm not going to do it for all parts of it, but just something like this. Let's have a look. You know, some of the people as well, you might just want to darken the pants or something on them, just to create a bit of, I don't know, just some contrasts. Okay, again, you don't need to really do this. You can wait afterwards when you get into the watercolors. This is just something that I, for some reason, can't stop myself from doing. And I think it's helpful because it creates a sense of contrast in there already, so that you don't have to rely completely on the watercolors to get all the details and stuff like that in. Okay, I put in a lot of figures in here, quite a lot of figures, doing all kinds of things in here. There's who knows what's going on that side. Just put in, maybe outline this fence a bit better. Oh, it's like a rectangular kind of shape. I don't know what this is. Like a rectangular kind of shape here on the ground. Let's get in some little perspective lines, maybe running through. I don't know if I should have done that. Oh, that's okay. We'll make do kind of there. So I'm kind of imagining a kind of lines coming from like a central point like here. Okay. There, there, getting one like here, maybe here. Okay. It looks all right. So what I'm doing is I'm just imagining like a point here, imaginary point, a dot, creating these lines that are going towards that dot. Okay. This is going to create a better sense of depth in your drawing. Notice how I've just got the finger there, it just helps. Okay. Look back at it in a moment and see if it's okay. That's all right. Okay. I think we are ready to get started with the painting, and it doesn't usually take too long. All right. Some questions in here. Medhavi is asking, are there any basic structure rules that you don't want to change, like the angle of the light, etc.? Play around with the placement play around with the placement of people, trees, etc. Yeah, so the light source has to make sense. You can change around some of the buildings, the structures, some of the angles, but say if you start changing around the angles too much and make these buildings start to face towards us, then the perspective is going to start to look a bit weird. So colors, shapes of figures, how many figures, how many carriages, all that kind of stuff, shapes of trees, doesn't really matter, but more so look at how the lines on the buildings are running and try to replicate the angles of those lines. And in training your mind to see them as more lines and shapes rather than buildings is something that takes a bit of time, but you certainly can do. So I hope that helps. Eve's are saying, thanks, Darren. I have to go now, but I will pick up where I left off. No worries, Eve. This has been going on for a bit, but we will we'll get cracking with the painting, and we'll apply some of what we've talked about before as well. So in terms of techniques. So I'm going to go through, and the first thing I always like to do is I like to pick out all the warm colors. I like to paint all the warm colors first. Just move this closer to the page so you can see a bit of my palette. I'm going to mix up some yellow ochre, a little bit of yellow ochre, and a little bit of buff titanium here. And I'm just going to put in some light kind of color here. It's really just a light yellow with light yellowy white sort of color, like that, just like that. And you know, these ones, they look pretty much white, so I don't think I may really touch them at all. I might drop in a little bit of this yellow in here so that it doesn't look all the same color, but something like that. Let's drop in a little bit of this burnt sienna and maybe a little bit of orange. Touch of orangey burnt sienna running through this building here. Okay. The aim is, of course, not to get in detail, but just to get in a light wash of color. As we move further down into the front of the scene, I am darkening this wash slightly as well. Okay. Notice how I'm also leaving a bit of that white on the paper at times. I don't want to color it all in. You can leave bits of it. The rooftop of this building, of course, is also kind of like a darker, warmer color. When I say warm color, I'm saying that it's kind of approximating the yellowish, reddish sort of hues. Okay, like that. Let's put in a bit more of it here, more orange maybe on this one. Okay, and we want to keep this light, and the reason why is because, well, this area is actually in the light. Okay, so we don't want it to just we don't want to get rid of all that. Okay, so you're really trying so hard to preserve the lighter areas of the paper, okay, for later. Rhymes. So I've not put in some of this stuff as well. Forgot to put in a triangular sort of shape up the top there for that building up there. I've really done it quite quickly, but that's okay. Some chimneys and stuff there as well. Let me just get some more of that orange and drop that in there. Perhaps very light sort of just light orangey, burnt sienna type color in there, a little bit in there. Okay, good, good. Notice just how quickly I'm doing this as well. The darker bits of the rooftops, I can just drop in a bit of this. It's kind of like a grayish paint. And not only that, I can pick up a bit of this. It's just a bit of leftover gray paint that I've got on the palette. I never really clean my palette. And I can just drop that in here to create a kind of different mix of color running through there. So it's not just the same orangey brown sort of color. I'm going to go in, let's pop in a bit of this over these other buildings as well. Okay, so a little bit of this kind of warmer color, same as what we've done on that right hand side, just different mixes of it. Just drop that in. Look how quickly I'm doing this. Okay, it's not I'm not trying to get in a whole lot of detail, just a touch of color like that. A bit more maybe brown in there as well. Notice how I mix the colors using wet in wet technique. I know what I was showing you before. I'm dropping in some color, picking up some extra color, and then dropping that in to create this sense of mixing and interesting looking blends in here. Okay, go around, let's cut around that bit. Okay, I think this building is also kind of orange, isn't it? So again, the buildings have a really lighter color on the top of them because the sun's sort of catching. Even here, there's this orangey sort of building here in the background. I'll just color that in a touch like that so that it actually helps bring out the colors of the other buildings in front. So keeping those, preserving those, keeping them pretty light. Now here's something I want to do. I'm just thinking how am I going to do this? I might just drop in a bit of white in here. And in a moment, I will actually, once this is kind of dried, I'll drop in some darker paint. Okay, but I'm just putting in a little bit of this whitish, it's basically just buff titanium. It's kind of slightly opaque. There. These umbrellas, they are kind of a darker color. I'm going to use, what's a complementary to orange, like a bluish, cooler color. So I might just use a bit of blue, ultramarine, which is actually kind of mixed in with some other stuff because I don't want it to be too dark. Okay, that's a very light mixture of it as well. Why am I using a light mixture? Because this area is still in the sunlight. Okay, but I want to create some coolness in here. Let's just drop in a bit of this coolness into the carriages as well. And why not a bit of warmth as well near the bottom? Just kind of browny sort of paint. Brown. If it gets too vibrant, I just like to, for me anyway these days, I'm not painting with too much vibrancy anymore. I just dull it down and add in some gray or what have you. So this is just a bit of the undercoat, I suppose, of these carriages here. There's not much in there. Okay, it's just a few bits and pieces. Let's go over to this side. Yeah, just drop in a bit of this color. I think I've kind of overdone it with that, but I'll drop in a bit of coolness. Look at this. This is just a bit of purple. I love purples in my paintings, especially when we have these lovely contrasts here of warm and cool. Look at that. I'm just dropping in a bit of this coolness in here. Why am I doing that? Because I want to create a sense of shadow. A little bit of sense of shadow there. Okay. Let's pick up a little bit more orange. This is a very vibrant-y kind of orange. I'm going to drop that in here. I'm not going to mess about with this one. Just drop that straight in there. It's very bright and vibrant. And also it is darker than the rooftop as well, as you can see. And mix this all together. Drop it all in. Let's just go all in one like that. Cutting around these window frames a bit so we leave some interest in there. There. What have we got? We're going further down, and it's just, again, some dark colors down the base. Bit of warmth down there as well. Okay. Around here, just a bit of color there. These umbrellas are almost white. I'd say they're pretty much white. I don't know. I may just leave them actually. And afterwards, I can always just add in a bit of yellow if I need. I quite like how they look actually at the moment, so I don't think I will play around too much with them. But a little bit of this milky kind of color for this building, I think, is in order. Just a little bit of that. This building here in the background. There's a bit of orange for this top of this building there as well. Let's have a look. I was playing around with some of these shadows on the building, like a little bit of this purple. So I'm going to just continue on and just darken off a bit underneath these buildings to create this sort of shadow-like pattern at the a softer shadow inside there. A bit here. Remember, these buildings are significantly darker than the buildings on the right because the light source is coming from the left. You're catching a bit of that. You're catching a little bit of the light on the rooftop, but then at the base of the buildings, you're going to have kind of a darker interior. Okay, bring this a bit across as well. That. Let's have a look. Do I want to put in any of this stuff in here as well? Yeah, can do. Can even leave some of these carriages a bit more in the light as well if you'd like. A little bit of green. I'm going to just chuck in a bit of undersea green here, which is just like a darker green, and a bit of yellow. Okay, a bit of yellow here to the left-hand side. Why to the left-hand side? Because I just want to indicate the light to the left of that tree. Okay, going straight to the edges and paint straight to the edges like that. Put in a bit of green like that. If you've got blue, just mix your blue and your yellow together. Okay, get this all in with one sort of shape like this. Okay, don't fuss around too much and worry. Just get it in. Okay, like that, and mix that around like that. Yeah, large shape. Just think of it as one big shape. The sky, I'm going to pick up some cerulean blue. Just pick that straight up, which is a really light blue. Okay, and I'm going to drop that straight into the sky. I think that's not the color I want. It's too much green in there. I'm going to grab some more of it. That's better. More of that cerulean there. It's a light blue. Just drop in. And I've done the trees on that left-hand side already. So I don't really need to do much else. Okay, just go in and I can leave, maybe you can even leave bits of white in the sky if you want to create these cloud-like, a few little cloud-like shapes and stuff like that. It's up to you. Okay, just drop them in a bit of that paint, cut around the buildings, okay, like that. Okay, something like that. Just a bit of color up there. It's all pretty much the same bluish color anyway. Let's work our way into the ground. I've not actually put in much color into the ground, and I will add in a little bit of this. It is kind of warmer. I might put some yellow ochre, just a light wash of yellow ochre here in the ground. We'll cut around the figures, of course. Light wash of yellow ochre. I think there's some orange in here as well, but it doesn't matter. A little bit of that yellow ochre. Perhaps some of this buff titanium as well. In there, just flash around there, that paint. Yep, like this. And I'm going to bring this all the way down to the front. Okay. There, bit of color in here. Okay, it's just warm colors. That's all it is. Bit of this burnt sienna into the carriage as well. There, a little bit of purple, okay, just in there. And I'm using very light mixes. This entire, everything that I've painted so far, I'm using probably about less than 50% water in each of these mixes, so that it doesn't overwhelm what we're trying to do here. We want to put in the shadows and stuff later. Okay. These tree areas here. I'm just going to drop in a bit of brown. I should have done this earlier actually because it will melt in better with the greens, but it doesn't matter. We can still put it in like this. Yeah, just a bit of the brown for that tree. In the background, I'm going to put in perhaps a bit of darkness, a bit of purplish color here as well, so that it's not all just light in that region. Just a little bit of color in there running across. There could be shadows, there could be anything really. Okay. We're getting to the point where we want to put in the shadows. We're getting very, very close to that point where we put in the shadows. Okay, so really right now, what I'm doing is looking at basic colors, basic lighter colors that we've got in here. We've got these figures as well, and I might think, let's get in some colors for these figures. I've got a bit of blue here, it's got turquoisey color, a bit of turquoise here. What else can we do? We can leave some white. We can get some in either red. There's a bit of red, bit of purple here for this one. Mixtures of colors for other ones. Just a touch of color in for these figures. Okay, keep it light though. Just as long as you keep it light, you are fine. Okay, just a touch of color, and I like to layer to make sure I've got some contrast. Sorry, with blues, kind of warm and cool colors. So we've got cooler colors contrasting with the warmth of the background colors. Okay. This area of the tree, I think it's kind of like starting to dry off, but it's still pretty wet, which allows me, kind of damp, I mean, it allows me to just get in little strokes, brush strokes like this. Okay. And this just creates, I just want to make this darker, this area of the tree a bit darker, but we want to have a mix of dark colors and light colors, and the light colors are mainly on the left side of the tree. But look at that really dark sort of neutral tint that I'm just dropping in here. Okay, you don't have neutral tint, just pick up a bit of blue and mix that with your green, and you get a darker kind of green come through. Okay, a little bit like that. And this will hopefully subdue down a touch as well. Squiggly bits and pieces all over the joint. Okay. Fantastic. So starting to slowly come together. Really what I want to do is start putting in the shadows, and I will give this actually a really quick dry, and I'll come back to you guys in a moment once this is dried. Okay, didn't take too long. Didn't take too long to dry that off, actually. It only took about a few seconds, but I think we should be okay to go with it. This bit actually I need to dry off a little bit in the corner. Sometimes it pulls. And I'm kind of wary to let it dry too much as well, because I actually want it to run a little bit. I'm going to pick up some purple, a little touch of purple. Let's go ahead and get this shadow. There's a large shadow coming in from the left for the trees. You can see there's like a shadow on the ground here. Okay, just picking up a bit of this purplish color mixed in with whatever I have on the palette. It's just anything. It's just a darker color. As long as it's cooler, has a bit of coolness in it, I'm happy. Okay, I don't mind. It's all pretty much quite a similar color. Even here, it's kind of a dark greeny sort of color as well, but I can. The advantage of having some of this stuff still wet is that it will just looks better. It just blends together more organically, looks more interesting. So I'm always wary of letting things dry too much. Okay, there we go. Look at this bit of this. It's actually pretty dark as well. This what you call it, carriage. Yeah, this is shadow here on the ground, but I'm making it, it's kind of just a purpley brownish sort of mix. Okay, and you can see that it just goes all the way over like this, and you've got even the shadows of these figures on the ground, like just running across like that. Okay, and the slither of light in the background too. Okay. The important thing is to make sure you're keeping some of that previous layer of yellow on the pavement as well, especially on this right hand side. I don't want to get rid of all of the warmer colors here. So this is something I think I'll do differently than the reference. I don't want to make the shadow go all the way over. I don't want to make it go too far to the right. Okay. And that, this could be like the shadows underneath the carriages, like that. Okay, like that. Here, here. Something like that up the front here. And of course, these buildings again, you can add in another little wash over the top if you want to further darken these buildings, which is what I'm trying to do. Just darken these buildings a little bit more, and hopefully that will create extra contrast as well. A more obvious sense of light and dark with these buildings. Okay. That's getting there. It's getting there. A little bit more purple and stuff here in the background. Again, I keep talking about this little rigger brush that I use sometimes, and this is great for doing kind of little finishing touches. Oops, that's too much, but kind of doing this sort of thing to create like a sense of these the tiles and stuff on the roof. You make them run across like this. That. Okay. I might just dab that off a bit actually. Some of that looks too much, too obvious. I got like a smaller brush, this might be better. Let's put in a bit more shadow underneath the rooftops. I like to put in a bit of shadow underneath some of these areas, like here and here, here, here perhaps. Little areas of the buildings where you can imply darkness and things running around. There, look at that. There's a lot of fiddling around at this point because the painting is mostly done. Okay, but at this point I'm just trying to draw out a few extra contrasts, and I might even go super dark. I can pick up some neutral tint here and just make that really dark around the bottom here. Okay, so that I've got a greater sense of contrast between the figures, the heads of the figures in the background. See, a little bit like that. You don't do it everywhere, but create a little bit of darkness in the background. Soften off some areas if it's just too much. Like here, I've gone overboard, so I just lift off there. Dab that a little bit there. Okay. While the paint's still wet, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of like refine and change things up. Okay. Just need to balance this off a bit. I want to put a bit more darkness perhaps in here. Some of these sections like that. And there, the tree, this actual tree is not dark enough. The what do you call it? The trunk of the tree. And not only that, we have some darker bits in the tree as well that I might want to get some little dry brush strokes. So wet on dry. Okay, wet on dry technique, a bit like that. Okay. A little bit of messing around like that. The figures I'm fairly happy with. Okay, a little bit of darkness on the right hand side of the figures does help to indicate a sense of light running towards, so the shadow coming from that left. So, a little bit of that there. This carriage is kind of darker as well. Okay. Bina says, thank you so much. You make painting look easy. It's look, it takes a while. It takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you feel confident to paint something from a reference picture and have consistent results. So I didn't start off, certainly didn't start off like this. My advice is just enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey, and when you practice, practice consciously. And because people often, you often hear people say, hey, you just need to practice more. You just got to practice more and practice 10 times a week and you'll get better. But I actually think it's the quality of practice that's important as well. You're asking yourself questions when you're doing things. Am I using the right color? Am I using the right value? What do I want out of, why am I doing that? So you constantly just, I guess, just being conscious of what you're doing rather than just putting the brush to paper for the sake of it. And if you do that more, think about your composition. What do I want to achieve? Before you even start painting, think about what you want to achieve. That is how you get better, rather than just practicing non-stop. Because if you practice and you're not doing the right kind of practice, you'll be frustrated because you spend a lot of time on it, but it might not yield the results that you want. So that's probably my little 2 cents of advice, I suppose. I like this kind of thing over here, this little one in the sun here. It doesn't really look too much like a, I think I'll go back into it later and get in a few more details. But I'm sure you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Okay, a few little birds here in the sky. I like to just drop in a few of these while I'm at it. Okay, and this helps to sort of bring the sky a little bit closer to the join up the sky with the buildings and the background and that kind of thing. There we go. A few little birds, sorry, kind of coming through the buildings even. I don't even know if there's birds around that area, but I'm going to put them in anyway. So, great. So I'll finish this off now. I think I'll go in afterwards and darken down and really bring out some highlights in there. But this bit here where you're refining things, adding in bits of darkness, lightening some areas, tweaking and refining it, that can take a long time. And it's really how long you want to do that. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about a program that I have running. But I want you to also ask me some questions about this session. If you have anything, drop it in the chats. But one of the exciting things that I have going on, and I've actually been running this program for a little while. It's I'll just bring up I made a little presentation on it, and just want to share this with you guys. So it's called the Watercolor Essentials program, and it's a program that I put together some time ago, probably about 3 or 4 months ago. And it's a comprehensive program. And for those of you who enjoyed this session, this will really help you to take things further. There's a lot of material, a lot of basically hundreds of fully narrated tutorials and videos in there. Okay. And basically, here's a few, basically a few questions that I thought I'd go through. Do you want to understand depth? If you want to understand depth and perspective, create some beautiful paintings that you can show to your friends and family. For those of you as well who are painting for a long time and you're just not understanding the process of what to do, it helps to get rid of that doubt and anxiety as well, because I go through my process, I go through everything that I'm using, and basically in real time. So very similar format to how I've done here, and I think offers a lot of value. So there's 42, it's basically a 42 course program. And there's a whole lot of courses in this program. So there's landscapes, line and wash, portraiture. As I said, it's a comprehensive program that I'll go through and show you what's actually inside in a moment. But I'll just go through this presentation first, and if you guys have any questions, drop it in the chats as well. You get lifetime access, so I've actually put these videos on my own platform. I actually provide my courses to a lot of external companies and stuff like that, but this is just an opportunity for me to kind of run things on my own. It gets a bit frustrating when I'm dealing with other companies and stuff like that, and I just want to, it's just my own sort of thing, I suppose. So there's 100, not 100, but there's, I think at this point, about 250 hours of content in there. There's a lot of content. And I'll show you what's included as well. But there's previous live workshops. Okay, you can learn at your own pace. You can stop and go whenever you want. They're all pre-recorded videos in there. Like I said, all narrated and step-by-step real-time instruction. I focus on these topics in all of my demonstrations. So creating depth, so understanding the difference between light and dark areas, pushing objects forwards and backwards, create a kind of convincing looking scene. Okay, perspective, a topic that a lot of people struggle with and want to learn, and I think it's really crucial. Okay, go through brush techniques, water control. So each course is a standalone course, and you can do them in any kind of order as well. But I talk about all these things in the context of the painting that I'm doing. And I even talk about the concentration of paints that I'm using as well. So that helps you to understand how to mix them up. So here are some of the included demonstrations and things that you can view. These are only a few of them that I managed to put together and pick out. So there's line and wash, portraiture, there's pure watercolors, a whole bunch of techniques. I mean, this one here is an atmospheric watercolor painting, so it's a lot of softness, how to create this soft kind of effect. The link for this program is in the description of the video, by the way, so you can have a look at it. But these are just some of the paintings, and I'll show you in these courses how to carry out all these techniques. And especially with this wet and wet technique here, it's one of my most favorite things to paint with, favorite techniques, and it takes a lot of practice, and often you might need a little bit of extra help to get there, especially when you're learning. And I guess my goal is just to save you time through that. So here is a few more here. There's just a whole bunch of portraits and stuff like that. A lot of line and wash, do portraiture as well, so I can show you in the course a whole bunch of ways to paint a portrait easily. Okay, some techniques there, some beach landscapes, other landscapes. So again, this is just some of them that are available. What do people think about this course? Well, I actually have all these courses on already available on my website and on other platforms. And these are just some of the reviews in case you're wondering what people think about them. So I get consistently high ratings on these platforms, my own platform, as well as Facebook. I have multiple students. I've got thousands of students combined on different platforms, and there's also a private group as well. I run 3 groups on Facebook. Watercolor Beginners, which has about 130 something thousand, and the others have maybe 2,000 something. So there's a lot of students on there. You can see what they come up with, how they've improved over the time that they've been doing my courses and my workshops. So just thought I'll put this up here as well. Okay. So what else is included? I thought I'd drop in a few bonuses as well. So the first bonus is that from the time that you register, so if you register today, you get 2 months of basically being able to contact me and ask for feedback about your paintings. And I think one of the most important things when you are learning how to paint is basically what you're doing right and what you can improve on. And it's very hard when you're looking at your painting when you start off with and trying to figure out what you need to work on. But me having painted for quite some time, I'm going to be able to provide you that tailored feedback so you can progress faster in your watercolors, save you time as well, so that you're not constantly spinning your wheels wondering what to do. And you also get to learn how to think like an experienced watercolorist. You get to kind of have a glimpse into my mind, what I'm looking at. It's kind of like what I was talking about, my mental process today. Okay, so that's a big bonus. You also get access to the private Watercolor Mentor Academy group. So this is a private group where you can also get priority feedback and ask questions and stuff like that. I do post additional content and answers for other people in the group that you can look at and learn from as well. So that's really good. Being part of a community. There's also other two free communities that I made on Facebook that you can also join. And one of the most important things, you get access to future courses. So I make courses pretty often. I try to do one every month, but additional ones will be added over time. So it just provides you with ongoing content, and I tackle different subjects, and we can do them together and grow as artists. So I find a lot of the programs that are out there, they may have like one to three, maybe two or three components in there. But I haven't really seen anything else out there that has access, pretty much, access to future content as well. So it just gets more valuable as you progress through. There's a few more bits and pieces that are included, just some demonstrations in there, so that you kind of know what you're signing up for. Again, there's a lot of content in there. So how much does it cost? It's probably the big question that people want to know. So I sell these courses for about $30 each on my own platform. On other platforms, the companies will sell them up to $200 each. So I've just taken that as the base mark, that $30 mark for the 42 courses. So you get $1,260 of value for all those 42 courses. There's so much content in there. And you can pick and choose what projects you want to complete as well. It's $200 value for the 2-month student support from the date of enrollment. So if you need help with your paintings, you can contact me, and I can provide you some assistance with that. And then also you have $80 value of the access to the private group. So that's what I was saying before. Again, looking at some of my answers to the other students and learning from them as well, and being able to post your personal questions. So total value of this program is $1,540 for all of this content. I mean, there's a lot in there. Okay, and the normal price that I usually set this for is $497, but today I'm going to set it to $297 to anyone who is watching in this live event. And I'll keep this up. I'll keep this up for a short period of time, and then I'll revert it back to the $497 later on. So it's a great opportunity to jump onto this offer. Remember that you get additional value for future courses that are added. And I try to get back to everyone when they ask me questions as well. If you can personally message me questions about your art and stuff like that, and I'll help you out. But of course, you get the 2 months where I'll provide you a priority support as well. So how do you enroll? So there's, if you're interested, just type enroll in the chats and I can send you the link. It's probably the easiest way. Otherwise, it's the first link. It's the first link in the chats. So not the chats. It's pinned to the top. So let me just grab that link for you. So I'll just send that to you. I think Anne's asking how to sign up. So it's this link, Anne, that I'll send to you now. And also to be transparent as well, and because you did the Watercolor Mentorship program with me, because you did the Watercolor Mentorship program with me, you still have, I think, 1 month of access to all of my courses before it expires. So it contains all of this information in there. But if you purchase this one, it basically, basically gives you lifetime access to all those courses as well as future ones that I make. But it was something I gave away as a bonus for just a limited access, 1 to 2 months access to my previous students. So that's the link. You can take a look at it. It's in the description, and I've also just posted it in the comments of the chats here as well. But you can take a look. Even if you're watching on YouTube, you can check in there as well. But if you're interested, just let me know, and I will drop that in for you. I think I'll go that sent you the link. Sent you the link, and just having a look if there's anyone else that's in there. But basically, I'll go through really quickly as well how to what's included, and I'll browse through it. I've got a little window open which will show you how to do it. This is how you join. So the enrollment link is just up the top right of the screen here. You can type that in your browser to enroll, or you can just click the sign up basically in the first link in the video description. That will take you straight there. Okay, if you have questions, also let me know, and I will certainly get back to you. Here's a few student testimonials that I thought I would add on here as well. There's lots of them. You can search me up and look at what my students are saying as well, and get a better idea. But here's a few that I thought I would include. So I think that really concludes this that presentation. But I want to show you a little bit as well about what the course looks like from my end of the view once you've purchased it, and once you're inside it, this thing loads. But guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and I will do my best to get back to you. And but basically, we've got over here. This is kind of like the enrollment page, but let me just get straight into it. It's just loading a little bit. Iwa says, "Love your style. Thank you for showing how you create it." No worries, Iwa. Thank you, and thank you for coming along. I really appreciate it. Linda Gaudet is asking, what brand of pens do you use? So the ones I use at the moment, again, they were provided to me by a company called Etcher. So they gave this to me for free. So they're like a black graphic pen collection. There's so many different providers and what do you call them, manufacturers of these pens. So these are just the ones I use. But what I love about these is that they have these kind of like flat tips for some of the pen nibs, but they're not necessary. You can just go to your normal shop and pick them up for a few dollars each. Robin Hastie's asking, did you say lifetime access? Yes, so it's lifetime access on my platform, so it's not going anywhere, and it's like a one-time sort of payment. Like I said, each of these courses, they usually sell for $30 to $200 each. I sell them for $30 myself, but the course platforms that I provide them to, they sell them for whatever they want. So I will drop you the link, Robin, if you wanna check it out. If you've got questions as well, you can have a think about it and ask. Certainly ask me later. I'm just going to bring up YouTube to see what's going on in here. I've just got so many windows going up everywhere. Fantastic. And Margaret, I'll chat to you later. I think you might be having some issues getting into my site. So that's all good. I'll bring them up later for you. I'll answer your questions later. So see your message. So this is what it looks like when you're in. Let me just make sure I'm broadcasting the right screen. So this is the first screen here. As you can see, It's got links to the private community. You've got to request access to that. All down the left-hand side of the screen, I've organized it so that it has all the courses listed here. So you've got all the watercolor courses. So there's it's in brackets watercolor. Okay, so for example, I might want to learn line and wash. Let me see. So I've got line and wash next, and then portraiture at the end. I want to go line and wash coastal landscape sketching, so I can go into what have I got here? I've got my bar mouth painting. Perhaps I can go in here. My internet's a little bit slow at the moment because I'm streaming at the same time. But you've got the video. It starts playing. You've got access to just on-demand video, basically. Okay, this is a scene that I did a while ago. It's one of my favorite scenes, actually. And funny enough, it only took about 40 something minutes to do. And I record all these videos in high definition quality. I use the best camera equipment as well. Audio is pretty good, so you're not going to have any issues hearing or understanding what's going on. I've got other stuff as well. What have I got here? I've got painting, portraiture. So I might have like a portraiture course in here somewhere. For example, that one, I don't know what this one is actually. We'll see once it loads. But again, they're all narrated. They're all narrated in real time, so you can sort of get a understanding of exactly what I'm doing at that particular moment in time. Line and wash tends to be something that's really popular. People love to do line and wash, and it's one of my favorites as well. So there's quite a few courses in there. Most of them are watercolor, but I'd say probably a third of them are line and wash. There's a lot of projects in there, so really keep you busy over time. There's Robin says would like to check it out. Yep, fantastic. Well, I've sent you the link, Robin. Have a look, and if you've got questions, just let me know. I do run these events every so often. These days, I've decided to just take a bit of time to focus on a few other projects as well. So you can still see me online. There is previous workshops as well. But thank you, and I'm just going to have a look what else we have in here. Around probably around in June, July, I'm going to run a special live workshop as well. I'm still planning that. I want to make sure that it's all set up properly before I start. But this is an ongoing program that I have. Basically, an ongoing program that I have, which has pre-recorded videos. Again, it's available. Available on demand. You have access to it for life, and you get access to all of my courses that I create in the future. Okay, so let's have a look. What else do we have in here? We've got, geez, I don't know what I've got in here. I've got quite a few bits and pieces. This is like a Victorian house. I don't know. I think I did this a while back. Washington DC houses, details and shadows. So I separate them out as well into multiple videos. So I'll have like one project that's separated out into a few videos, and the reason for that is that it just helps you to break down the video. You might do it in parts, okay, and help you to understand exactly what I'm what step I'm up to in the process. So try to do that, adding shadows and things like that as well. But guys, if you have any questions, and especially if you have any general watercolor questions as well while I'm here, just let me know. I'm going to hang around for a little bit and answer your questions and go through, if especially with some of the previous things we were talking about, where we were talking about figure drawing, we were sketching, identifying shapes when we're drawing, color mixing, and I did show you a little bit about wet and wet watercolor painting as well. What I'm doing here in this video demonstration, you can see I'm using wet and dry techniques. So basically, the page is already dry, and I'm just adding in a shadow shape. Okay, So I can go through some of that stuff if you'd like. Can still see there's about 27 people, 27 or so people watching on the moment. And let me just have a look on YouTube. We've still got about 8 people or so watching on there. So it's been a while since I've done one of these actually, and it was a very spontaneous thing. I thought I'd just organize one and just do it. I haven't done a live demonstration for a bit, but of course, if you are interested in learning more and would like to support me as an artist, this is a pretty good opportunity to get a lot of value, not only to my current courses, but for future courses as well. So I'll add them in there. Okay. Having a look. What else is there? Fantastic. Look if there's any other questions. Nerida is saying, don't be afraid to add of the darks in the shadows. And Nerida says, thanks, Darren. Great class. Love watching and listening to you. I'm still drawing, but happy to do the painting with you on replay. Yeah, you can watch a replay later. That's all good, Nerida. And Nerida, I think, is really good with adding shadows into her paintings. You're definitely not afraid of adding those shadows. I think it's one of those things that beginner painters get a bit worried about, because you find that the shadows create such a sharp contrast, and especially while the paint hasn't dried yet, it just looks quite stark and out of place. But once it dries, it has a kind of flatter look to it. Okay, and the hardest thing I found when I was starting off was just learning how to put that sharper shape in there and just leave it. Don't touch it. I just get uncomfortable with that, with the sharpness of it, and I dab away at it and I stuff it up. So certainly something to keep in mind. And Carlin Caps is saying, Darren, I've been drawing the whole time. I'm slow. I will enjoy the painting process, but the drawing is much more challenging for me. Yes, drawing, I think, is the basis of painting. It's such an important thing to certainly learn. So definitely, I think this learning line and wash and practicing your urban landscape sketching, even if you're just outside, you're in a you've got your sketchbook with you or something like that, really helps you to progress faster. So well done, Carlin, to make it all the way to the end. I think to make it nearly 3 hours in is quite a feat. Kay is saying, I'll have to consider this. I'll need to consider the payment. I'm a pensioner, so I need to sell a painting to be a participant. Enjoyed your lesson immensely. Thank you, Kay. And I thought I'd mention as well, there is a payment plan option that I've enabled as well, so you can pay it off over 3 months. So that's a thing. You just got to go to the top of that pay. Let me just send the link. There is another link that I can just send to you here. And this will allow you to access some kind of payment plan. Like I said, just enabled it last night. So yeah, might be interested, might want to take a look, but I'll send that to you. Where is it? Too many things going on. That's the main page of it. If anyone is interested as well, that's the main page that offers the payment plan. Something that people asked me before, because I know for some it just makes it a bit easier. Carlin says, thanks so much for your helpful instruction. You're welcome, Carlin, and thank you for joining along. If you have questions while I'm here, go ahead and ask, whether it just be that general watercolor, about anything that I've done today. I'm going to hang around for a little bit. I know, really appreciate your time being here as well. It's a lot to sacrifice a morning to sit and try to figure out how to paint a complex sort of scene like this. So I always want to make sure I'm answering everyone's questions and giving the most value as I can. Oops, I think that video just finished. What else do I have in there? We can go back and play some other stuff. What have I got here? There's a whole lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of things in here. Some of these courses are longer than others. I really like the atmospheric watercolor landscape painting one. One of my most favorite ways to paint is wet into wet, and this course helps you to understand how to do that in a you can see here already. Let me just rewind it a little bit. Yeah, allows you to see how I'm able to achieve an effect like this. And I also talk about the mixes, explain the mixing of paints as well. Okay. Excellent. Taking a look if there's any other questions in here. Maggie's saying, Darren, I love this one. I will try it soon. Fantastic. Yeah, definitely give it a shot. This is a tricky one. This is a tricky one. But I had a look. You had a really nice scene, the one that we did the other week of the Venice. Where is it? The Venice scene. Can't remember where I put it now. It's somewhere behind here. Your kind of interpretation of this one, I thought it was pretty good, Margaret. So this scene isn't all that different, but certainly I think the buildings are a little bit more fiddly. But yeah, one of the things that I'll do after this session is I'll add in extra darkness into the buildings and really try to bring out more contrast. Good. I'm just gonna hang around for a little bit, and again, if anyone wants to ask some questions, I'll give you a few minutes to go through, and just let me know. Okay. And again, if you're watching along after and you have questions, you want to know, you want to know a few extra tips, or maybe you're watching along and you have some questions about what I've done. Maybe I've not explained something in enough detail. Very happy to go through those as well with you. Anna says, "Thank you, Darren. I'm still drawing, and it was a very nice lesson." Thanks, Anna. I'm glad that you found it useful. This drawing is quite it's quite complex, I have to say. It's definitely a lot more complicated than the usual subjects that we handle. So you've done really well, super well to make it through. Let me just bring back the other the normal screen. I've got this thing playing, and it's like it's playing over the top. I think that's better. Okay. So what I'll do afterwards actually is that I'm going to go into this a little bit further, draw out a little bit of detail in the figures. I might put in some gouache, bring out some light in here. I might put some highlights on the heads and the shoulder, the left shoulder of the figure, with a bit of gouache. I'm going to go into the background a bit more dark and a bit extra there, get in some dry brush strokes, maybe draw out some details on the carriages. But for a quick urban sketch scene like this, I think it's turned out pretty well. And the process is the most important. What I've taught you today, understanding how I work from the light colors to the dark colors, creating softness and mixing, how to create color harmony as well by using fewer colors, thinking of colors as just warm and cool as well. I think that's like a really important thing. Diane Moore says, awesome, thanks. Thank you, Diane, and thank you for joining today. Fantastic. So, oops, just waiting for this thing to load up a bit more. Good. I think that's all the questions so so far. Again, if you guys, if you're watching along afterwards, and if you're watching along afterwards and have questions, drop in the chats and I'll try to answer if I see them. You can also message me personally. Helen has a question. Helen says, thank you so much for your advice regarding perspective. How will it affect your colors if you want to paint a building in a far off distance? Okay, I'll answer that first part of your question first. So normally when you're talking about, so there's two types of perspective. There's linear perspective, and then there's atmospheric perspective. So what we've done today is just making sure the buildings, the angles and everything of the buildings, they make sense. Atmospheric perspective is a phenomenon when it's kind of when you're looking into the distance and you're looking at a bunch of mountains. The mountains will often appear, not just mountains, anything appears slightly fuzzy, slightly more out of focus. There's even like a bit of a hazy, it takes on a kind of bluish tint. Things in the distance take on a slightly bluish tint. With things like this, which are quite close, a scene like this, really atmospheric perspective is not really too much of a consideration in these type of scenes. I'm talking about more like, if you're doing like a natural landscape or something. I'm just seeing if I can kind of find something even like that. You can see how the in the distance, I've painted these little mountains in the distance, and this is from one of my courses, by the way, that's included in this program. Softness in the background, kind of fuzzy. Okay, that helps to push that object back, and then the sharpness here brings that into the brings it closer. Is what I'm trying to say. So, if you want to paint a building in a far off distance. Yeah, so I'll just dull down the color of that building, Helen. So now I'm doing a building really, really far off. I don't want to make it too vibrant, put too many single pigments in there. I might just, if I want to make it blue or something, I'll just put a bit of gray into it, and I'd make it lighter as well. Generally speaking, objects in the background will be lighter and objects in the foreground will be darker. I think the second part of your question regarding shadows, what colors would you suggest for shadows in the background? I often use pretty much the same shadow color for most of my paintings. So I used a kind of purplish shadow for my one today, but I will just dull that shadow down, make it a little bit, you basically make it a little bit lighter in the background. This one here, I haven't really done that. I've just used pretty much the same sharpness and the same color of shadow, value of shadow here, because I wanted to create a really sharp sort of feel for this one, maximal contrast, okay? But it really depends. The further back you go, you do want to just soften off those shadows. So I hope that answered your question, Helen. Let me know. Marie Spencer saying, comment here from Marie. I've been watching but not painting, and I have learnt so much already. I'm very interested in your lifetime program. Hopefully I'll be painting along with your in your program soon. How long is the offer for? Very appreciative of all your free offers so far. You're not only informative but also inspiring. Thank you, Marie. I'm glad you enjoy these sessions, and as much as I know, I'm here doing it. I think I really want to make sure that you guys are getting the most out of it. So that these live sessions are great because it just allow you to ask questions and get to know me a bit better, and be able to get some some of your specific things that you've been wondering about answered. So how long is the offer for? I'm thinking of leaving it up there for a few days, and I'm gonna change it. We'll change it back. The original price that I do want to charge for it is $497 per course. I think it's a pretty fair price per course, especially if you take into account the fact that I'm going to be uploading more stuff in there. I have other friends who are artists as well. They also sell courses, and I've actually been told by them to don't do it. They often you see a lot of artists will sell maybe even just 1 to 2 courses which might be quite similar to what I'm doing for comparable sort of price. But you know, I always like to make sure I want to feel comfortable knowing that for you, you're getting the most amount of value out of it. So I often sell the courses one by one on other platforms, so I'll get a little bit here and there. But this just allows me to sell the courses on my own platform, and to have a more consistent sort of income as an artist, I suppose. So thank you for your interest, and Marie, if you've got questions afterwards, just let me know. Got other free stuff on there as well. You can always just watch that in the meanwhile but there's a lot of value in this program. So if you're able to and you're interested, I suggest giving it a go. Tracy saying, thank you so much, Darren. Really enjoyed this session. Thank you, Tracy, and appreciate you being here, spending your morning or probably evening here, watching and painting along. Nerida says, oops, sorry, that's the I've already read that comment. That's okay. Let's have a look. What else do we have? What else do we have here? Got a lot of moving around all over the place. Fantastic. So I am going to give it a few more minutes, okay? But again, if you are watching along and you want to understand a little bit more about this program that I have going on, this pre-recorded program, or you have any questions, do let me know while I'm around, because I'm probably going to go grab something to eat soon, grab some lunch. It's about 1:30 here in Melbourne, 1:30 in the afternoon. So 10, 11, 12, 1. That's nearly 3 hours that we've been here. So you guys are certainly super patient and keen as well. So I think we've almost got everyone covered. Righto. Well, you know what? I don't really see any other questions. Okay. And I want to let you guys go off and do what you need to do as well. I'm getting pretty hungry. So thank you all for coming along. And I'm glad that I've got some good feedback about some of you that have enjoyed the session today. Thank you also for letting me talk about my program. I think it's a great little platform that I'm able to. It's great these days. I think Facebook or just being able to do these streams allows me to get out to a lot of people that I think wouldn't have been possible 50, 60 years ago. So I might